thank you all for coming. And yeah, that's true. I will show you some, share some insights about managing the project, maybe more on communication in the project and dealing with medium and large enterprises than about the Scrum itself. All the insights in the presentations are from the real life experience. So let's start with what makes the e-commerce successful. First of all, the motivation behind starting the e-commerce channel. I've seen many different motivations behind running the e-shop, starting from the marketing and branding needs, going through some operational optimizations, like optimizing the client service time and efforts, going to motivations based on ROI, revenue, the numbers. And what I have to say that the most healthy ones are those based on the numbers. So you should treat your e-commerce as your core business because it is your core business. By treating the e-commerce as core business, I also mean that probably you should involve the management board of the company into the project. I've seen many projects that only one department was in charge of the e-commerce, like only marketing department or only sales department, and it's a rare situation that those e-commerces were successful, because introducing e-commerce nowadays requires a lot of changes across the whole company. The good example here is like if you have merchandise partners and introducing e-commerce, you probably will have some conflict around the prices, because the prices offline are usually higher than online, and you have to deal with that to not piece off your partners. Another example is like implementing omnichannel features. You probably should have, you must have brick and mortar store support to do this, because they have to reorganize their processes, and doing so without management board support and engagement is impossible. Also, the successful projects I was involved in usually had some kind of written down e-commerce strategy that that contains P&L, profits and losses. Also, marketing budget is quite often case that somebody launches the e-commerce but haven't thought about the marketing spendings then, and is surprised that nobody comes there and buys something. So you have planned this, and also what is crucial, you have to have good managerial skills on the merchant side. You have at least to have e-commerce manager, somebody who understands how the business is going, how the e-commerce is working, and is able to make decisions in the project. And it's good to have some IT consultant or CTO, Chief Technical Officer, to also coordinate all the IT challenges, like integrating with ERP, with other systems, to check the results from external agency or IT department. Okay. Managing the project, managing the successful project is not only about delivering tasks and results or creating some products, but it's foremost about the communication. I was involved in a few projects where I give you one example of the project with huge problems with communication. In your project, you probably have many stakeholders. There is usually case that you have a lot of departments in the company. You have CEO of the company who's interested only in budget, in deadlines, because your e-commerce project is only a part of the bigger puzzles. So having this business owner, somebody who pays for the efforts for the e-commerce, focus on the budget. It's easy as a product owner on the merchant side to focus on the platform, try to make the best e-commerce site that is possible, and doing so overrun the budget, not informing the stakeholders. It's a recipe for the huge problems and failure. So I advise to use something called RACI. It's a matrix usually done in MS Excel, when you put who should be informed, who should be responsible, consulted, and accountable for each particular decision made to the project. So, for example, if something exceeds the budget, you have to have business owner, consultant, and so on. So it's good to understand your stakeholders. Here is a diagram of stakeholders of typical e-commerce projects. So you have mentioned before a business owner. You have managers of a particular department, like marketing manager, operational manager, logistics manager, sales director, and so on. And on the other side, you have the IT team, which can be third-party company like vendor, like agency, or it can be your IT department as well. It works the same way. And in between, you have two very important guys, product owner from the business side and project owner from the IT side. And what is crucial here to make those two in charge of any decision that is according to the project. So he should make all the stakeholders to achieve the consensus about how the features should work, which ones are the top priority, which are not, how to deal with the budget, and it looks like simple situation, but in real life there is usually a case like, for example, product owner, which is a commerce manager most often, avoids consulting other stakeholders because he would like to avoid the conflicts, and then it causes change orders in the end phases of the project because they finally see what was developed and is not what they are expecting. So it can cause a lot of problems. So we have to have those two guys to work really closely. If you work in Scrum, they probably should have a daily calls each day and attend the demo and retrospective meetings at the end of the sprints. The product owner should be able to make the business stakeholders to achieve the consensus. A project owner should be able to translate the business requirements to IT tasks, and on the other side, to translate the IT challenges to the product owner. So if you have your stakeholders and you understand their goals that can be sometimes contradictory goals, you can start budgeting your project. Basically, there are two approaches. First of all, you can have an agile approach, most commonly chosen one nowadays. It's like you work in some agile methodology like SCRUM. And here you have a diagram of the red line is the risk of the project. It decreases each sprint, and value increases each sprint. So it looks quite fine because the risk is low and you get really the value. In the opposite is waterfall, when you during the project lifetime you get nothing and then you simply get the project done. But it's if it is what you are expecting, nobody knows. So agile is good because you can control the process. You can change the scope between the sprints. You can check the quality, test some features after sprints are finished, publish some features even throughout the project. But on the other side is waterfall budgeting, that you can set up the whole budget, which is fixed at the beginning, and then simply wait that company or IT department will finish the project, and you don't have to control it because they know how the budget frames look like and so on. But from my experience, as it may seem easier way from the merchant side to go using waterfall methodologies, at the end it causes a lot of stress because you have something I called UAT wars, user acceptance test wars, when at the end of the project you have conflict between your IT guys that try to convince you that what you see on the website is what you expected, and what can be two different worlds. Okay. So more about agile traps. As I said, many companies nowadays choose to go with agile, with Scrum, but as I've seen it, many companies are not ready for this this way of coordinating the project. And the most common case is that the product owner is not is not so experienced working with these methodologies or don't have time to coordinate the project. And if you are not controlling the Scrum team, it's very, very easy to access the budget, to overrun the dates. So it can be really, really risky to work in this way before good preparation. I suggest for the product owners to go with two gold rules here. First is no surprises rule. It works in each direction, so you should not surprise the IT guys with new requirements, but you also shouldn't surprise your stakeholders with some changes. You should inform everybody as fast as possible. And the second one is trust but verification. I suggest to verify all the progress and all the stuff related to the project based on numbers. I will show you how to do this on the next slide. So basically, many companies would like to have the effects of the agile approach, but in the waterfall constraints, within waterfall constraints with fixed budget and so on. It is possible to work like that. What is key here is to have a good analysis at first, to check everything that can challenge the project and change the budget. So what is good analysis? In one sentence, good analysis, it's something that is easy to understand and approve by business users and IT guys. It's hard to do something like that. Because what is usually the case, the IT guys create a lot of user cases, a lot of descriptions in plain text, and I was an IT guy, I was an engineer, and for me it was really hard to understand why the business clients don't understand this specification and approve something and they change it suddenly. They simply don't understand it. So it's extremely important to make it as easy as possible to go through analysis, like creating mockups, creating graphics to show how the features will work, to do some pilot stages. Pilot phases are a really good tool. It's like you run, for example, role playing Magento and allow the users to click through the admin panel to the front end to make them understand with what are they dealing with and how the system should work to meet their expectations. And I suggest that the best way to do the analysis is based on user stories from Scrum. So the simple sentences, for example, as a administrator, I should have a capability to change the order statuses and so on, and then create mockups for those features. Then you should give the user stories list to the IT guys to divide the features into particular development tasks that usually are put in Jira or some other tools, and then create the estimation for all those features. Here is the example of mockups. We do a lot of paper mockups. It's really useful tool. Sometimes we digitalize them using Axure or other tool for designing to conduct some user tests and so on. But even having it on the paper is good. So about the budgeting, when you have the user stories list that is accepted and understandable for the business users, and you would like to have a fixed budget, so this is the situation you would like to have the fixed budget, I advise to use something called the Moscow prioritization. It's like you categorize the user stories into 4 categories: must, should, could, and want. And it means that the must-haves should be budgeted like for 60% of the budget. Should and could for 40%. The numbers are from the experience. They are not from some theoretical findings. So if you budget like that, you can have ability to guarantee you provide all the musts But if some challenges occur, like problems with Magento 2, with some bugs or something like that, then you can simply cut off the shoots and codes to make the thing happen. Of course, it's not so easy because merchants usually put all the features as must-haves. But it's not true, because the must-haves should be the ones that are related to doing the business, for making the orders. Also, when you get a budget from agency or from IT department, you should take a look if it's realistic. I mean that the realistic budget contains time for communication, for project management, for some buffers, some time needed for tests and fixes. This is the real budget, because if you are working in time and material, in Agile, then if you don't have it on the budget, you have to exceed your budget to cover those costs, because they occur. And if you have all those things, you should monitor the progress at least weekly. Okay. So here is about the requirements consensus. Is something that has to be made during the analysis phase. I mean that if you are trying to set the prioritization as must, shoulds, and coulds, and you will ask each department separately, they will give you totally different priorities. So for a sales department, the ability to make some promo rules is much more important than, for example, a requirement from operational department to print some packing slips or something like that. And you have to deal with that as a product owner and create one list of priorities to know what can be cut off during the development. And it's also very important that late changes, as you know for sure, late changes often result in huge excess of the budget, because if something is already developed, tested, and published, changing it is a nightmare. So waiting with the consensus to the final user acceptance test is the worst things you can do, and it's very often the case that it works like that. So how to get the departments to make the consensus? We do it like on workshops. So we try to work in groups and present all the stakeholders how the features would look like, how they will be implemented, and try to find out the common denominator around all those features. Here is about checking the progress status. The IT projects are complicated ones, so basically you cannot base only on some project manager score of the situation, like, yeah, it's good. It's not enough. You should base on some numbers, and we typically track the few things. We are using Jira for tracking the progress, and we are tracking the pace of the team, how many tasks the team is finishing during each sprint, and how it correlates to the plan, the initial plan. So is the deadline realistic or not? We also try to find out how many working hours we have till end of the project, including holiday season, and also it's really important to check all those things. And we also create additional document, additional to Jira, called project knowledge. We use Google Docs. Here is an example of this Google Doc, and in this document we put the rough schedule that is easily understandable for the business. Also some budgeting things, like how many hours did we already burn out, how many do we have in the budget. And two very key features of this document are the open risks registry and open issues registry. I know how it sounds, but they are for communication with the client, because usually when you need something from the business user, you send the email and that's all. And then after 3 weeks, you still don't have the information, and you have problems. So having all those requests in one place is really, really good stuff, because you always have possibility to reminder in status email about the open issues and so on. Okay. Here is about the Scrum. You probably all know the Scrum. Who don't know how Scrum works? Everybody know. So this is the photo from the daily meeting. What we learned about the Scrum is that usually it's good to separate the daily meetings from the meetings with the client. So I know that Scrum requires that all guys, product owner as well, are in the team and work tightly. But usually, it can cause the frustration, especially when the product owner is not a technical person, because developers are discussing some challenges, some issues, and it can be really frustrating for for the business user to hear all those stuff which he or she don't understand. So we divided the daily meetings for two parts. The first one is for the team, so they have 50 minutes or 30 minutes or basically 50 minutes to discuss all the challenges, a very honest discussion with all all our problems to be revealed there. And then after this is another 10 minutes call between product owner and project manager to discuss the business things. And usually we try to focus on the retro and planning and demo sessions at the end of the sprint. It's usually like 6-hour meeting when we show the results. The team is attending those meetings to gather the feedback from the users. And then we plan the next sprint and so on. Okay. Here is about the UAT, user acceptance test. In Scrum, sometimes there is the biggest focus is put on the test after each sprint, but I would say that it works, but to some point. So the tests after sprints are focused on the particular granular features, and the UX should be focused on the business value. For the business processes, you should test the website from end to end, like making orders and if everything works together, testing the ERP along with the e-commerce and so. So so they should be business focused. And what is also important here to be careful about who you invite to the test, because as I've seen, it's sometimes the case that the merchants invite some guys from their company that are really not tolerant to any issues, and it causes a lot of frustration, a lot of misunderstanding, and this misunderstanding and frustration can generate problem with the system adaptation, because those guys will generate bad press across the company, like, oh, what a shitty system it is. And that's not true. It's not a shitty system, and if we have 100 or even 300 issues after UX, it's okay. It depends on the scope of the project. We had a few projects with 300 issues after UX for the project. The project was for 1 year or so it was a huge one. And we deal with those issues in 1 month, so it's not so big deal. Okay. The product launch. This is the moment that each team member is expecting the most and waiting for it. But to be honest, it's the most stressful moment during the project lifetime, because you cannot revert it. What is published, and you have only one chance to do this. So it can be really stressful. Here's the picture of product launch of smyk.com. It's children's fashion brand, quite popular in Poland. The biggest in Poland. So they are happy, and then after a few minutes they started fixing issues on production. so it can be very stressful, and I would suggest you plan everything you could here, like creating plan A, B, C, D, or So I suggest that you should check what can go wrong and create a checklist for deployment, checklist for migration, checklist for everything, because during the product launch, everybody are really, really tired, because they are after a few weeks of fixing issues. It's easy to miss something or make some failure. So it's good to have the plan. It's good to have hourly schedule for the day 0. Like we have time slot from 10 to 12 to migrate the products, and if we cannot manage to do that, we have to go with plan B or something like that. It is especially important if you are going with migration of previously working site, because then for the go live you usually have to switch off the previous previous version. So missing the time frame for launch is like missing the time frame for Racket launch. They usually also have some time frames there in the Racket industry. The good product launch is prepared by the test. So I usually suggest to do 2 weeks or 3 weeks user acceptance test, then have like 2 weeks for fixes, 2 weeks for retest. It's great if you can have code freeze period after that. So the code freeze means you are not changing anything in the system, but still checking it, testing it, how it works, if there are no other issues. Sometimes we go with the pilot phase launch. Pilot phase is cool. It's something like you are launching the new site only for some group of the users. Usually we did the soft launches, like we invite the employees of the merchant company and from our company. The shop was 100% working, connected to ERP, fulfilling the orders, and then the merchant can check, the whole process of logistics and so on. But it's extremely hard to plan those pilot phases, because you should have ERP prepared for something like that. You have implement all the processes. So it's quite hard. But if you have a really huge project with huge revenues, it's good to do this. Okay, so basically that's all. If you have any question, I will be there during the networking break, and you can also grab me your name card or grab me your email, and I will then send you some extended version of this slide deck. And you can also find some interesting ebooks on our website. So thank you.